guys, Michael Hopper here. Today we're going to go over a common exercise we give our athletes to build work capacity. Now a lot of our athletes, they'll come in and they've tried out mobilizations on their own, whether they're trying to work on a tight hip, a tight upper back, but oftentimes the common complaint they have is those mobilizations will work temporarily, but sometimes by the next day even, they feel just as stiff and tight as they were before. So when they come to us, we'll still mobilize the hip if it's stiff, we'll still mobilize the upper back if we need to, but oftentimes we follow it with a loaded kneeling position. So what I mean by that is, if I'm holding onto a weight, for example behind me, I automatically have to engage my postural stabilizers. I automatically have to work on breath control, and then as you'll see, when I turn side to side with that weight, it really challenges my symmetry and it challenges the endurance in order to hold that position. And what we find is it tends to really make that mobility that we gain, it tends to make that stick following the session and between visits as well. So it's a great way too to introduce yourself to building work capacity after you've resolved an area of stiffness, and to prepare yourself better for starting a strength and conditioning program or resuming getting back to the gym. So a starting point for us is in a tall kneeling position. I'm going to take a fairly light weight, so you're going to be holding onto it for a while, so start light. And I'm going to place it behind my back. Now with my knees, ideally I want to make sure that my feet are pointing straight behind me and I'm up as tall as possible. When I'm holding the weight, a cue you want to think about is push the weight down. All that means is it should make you sit up a little bit taller. If it feels like you're just having to arch your back by doing that or change your posture to one side, that's not the point of the cue. Just think tall. So now we're going to go through a series of turns and add in some breath control. So we always start from the middle, push the weight down, and cycle one belly breath. Then I'm going to see how well I can turn to one side. So I lead with my head and neck first, then my shoulders, then the weight. Now I'm taking it to the end point that I can go, and then I'm going to take 4 belly breaths. For the purposes of time, we're going to call that 4, and we'll come back to the middle, cycle 1 belly breath, and do the same thing to the right. So lead with your head, then the shoulders, then the weight. 4 breaths. We'll call that 4. And then you finish with 1 more breath, facing forward. Now ideally, we want our athletes to be able to do that for 2 rounds in a row. Really challenging their endurance, looking for any asymmetries, looking for breath control. So if say you're turning to one side and you get to the end point, but when you try to breathe, it's all from the chest, what that tells your brain is you can't control that position. So instead, back off of that range just enough so that you can belly breathe. So whenever you're working on mobility, make sure you can breathe from the diaphragm or the belly. And if you can't, if it's only up here, it means you really need to work on that. You may not be ready for that end range position. So give this one a try. It really helps to build work capacity, and as you can see, it has a number of other benefits as well. If you'd like to learn more about how I work with athletes, reach out to RestoreThrive.com or contact us at 913-396-9726.